Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sheraton Saigon Hotel Tower today. Before your meeting here, I would like to do the safety briefing for you. In case of emergency, you know how to behave to the case. Firstly, I would like to talk about the exit from the meeting room. We are on third floor in the ballroom 1 and 2. Behind you is the main door of the meeting room. Outside is the foyer. Now, I will tell you the first one. For the exit, you go out the meeting room. On your left-hand side, there's a corridor. Just go straight. You will see the exit staircase at the end of the corridor. This one. This staircase allows you to go down to ground floor and exit to Dongyu Street in front of the hotel. The second one on your right-hand side. We just leave the room and you look on your right-hand side. There's a small corridor. You go this way and you will go to the staircase. This staircase also allows you to go down to ground floor. The second one, secondly, I would like to talk about the assembly point. The assembly point is our driveway in front of the hotel ground floor, where the hotel coordinates with the organizer to do the head count to ensure that everyone is safe from the evacuation. Last but not least, today the hotel doesn't organize any evacuation drill. In case you hear an alarm goes off, please stay calm because it's maybe a false alarm. We have a hotel emergency response team to gather to the scene to investigate. If the alarm is real, we will play the announcement through our speaker system. At that time, just follow the instruction and use the staircase that I have told you to go down to ground floor and go to the driveway, the assembly point. That's it from me today. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Before we start APRICOT, we'll have a cultural performance to welcome us all here. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for that amazing performance that we had to start this APRICOT 2017 in Ho Chi Minh City. I would like to welcome our distinguished guests, His Excellency Dr. Phan Tam, who's Deputy Minister of Information and Communications, Mr. Vu Hong Lin, Chairman of Vietnam Association, our hosts and partners, Mr. Tran Minh Tan, Director General of APNIC, Mr. Vu De Bin, CEO of NetNam and General Secretary of VIA, Paul Wilson, Director General of APNIC, and of course our keynote speakers, Tim O'Reilly, CEO of Riley Media, and Nguyen Hong Tang, who's Deputy Director General of VNIC. And of course, I'd like to welcome our distinguished guests from MIC who are joining us this afternoon. So, as we were discussing just earlier with the Minister and guests from MIC, this is the first time we have held APRICOT in Vietnam. It's been a long time coming. We're absolutely delighted to be here. We have been here, some of us in the community have been here many years ago for the APNIC conference in Hanoi. So we've finally managed to bring APRICOT here, and we're very, very happy to do so. This event is brought to you in partnership with APNIC and our local partners of VNIC, VIA, and NetNam, who have been helping all of us over the last probably 2-3 months to put this event together. It's a packed program for the next 4 days. I'm sure you've been looking at the agenda. The PC Program Committee has been working hard for since early November to assemble the program for you. We've had a lot of interest in this APRICOT, and I'm delighted to say we've around about 700 delegates registered, and so far almost 600 have actually checked in here for the event. So that includes 120 participants who came for the workshops. Some of us have been here for over a week already, and we've had amazing turnout from the workshops, 21 instructors, over 120 participants. And so I think some of us are now able to relax this week to enjoy the conference. The conference program, of course, includes the technical sessions, the peering forum, which is a major event. We've got panel discussions. APNIC contribute a lot as part of their conference during APRICOT 2017. We have the technical tutorials, informal birds of feather sessions, as well as, most important, for me anyway, is the opportunity for you to socialize, meet your industry colleagues from all over the Asia-Pacific region and around the world as well. So I hope you enjoy the week of, as I said, very busy 4 days, and I would like you all to make as much opportunity of it as you can. Thanking our hosts for having us here, and thank you for the Ministry of Information and Communication for supporting this event. So I'm doing 2 roles here. I'm doing the welcome as well as being the Master of Ceremonies. So I would now like to invite Paul Wilson, Director General of APNIC, to come and say a few words.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Philip. To our hosts, to the Deputy Minister, Dr. Phan Tam, to our friends Tran Minh Tan from VNIC, Vu De Bin from NetNam, all your staff, I want to express sincere thanks on behalf of APNIC for hosting the meeting here in Vietnam. This is actually one of my favourite countries in the region. I was here more than 20 years ago and played a part in a project with IDRC of Canada, where I met with NetNam and made a good friend of our chairman, Tran Ba Tai. So I'm very glad to have come back here several times, including APNIC 20 in Hanoi in 2005, and now with APRICOT. It's a huge pleasure. So late last year, the Deputy Minister identified information technology, one of the most important development factors in Vietnam, and he specifically mentioned infrastructure and human resources as priorities. That's very relevant to us because that's what APNIC is all about. It's about internet infrastructure development and internet skills development. It's also what APNIC stands for, by the way. Our survey last year showed again that the APNIC membership across 56 economies of the region shares those same priorities as well. So it's nice that we're all on the same page here. I really do encourage everyone here, as Philip said, to take the opportunity to participate fully in everything that APRICOT has to offer this week, which is all about building your skills, build the internet. So do use this chance to meet and learn from your peers and expand your knowledge about network operations, about routing and addressing, IPv6, of course, about security, and any of the other new and significant topics that are coming up here. I'm sure that you'll both enjoy it and also gain a huge amount from being here and take that knowledge back home with you. I do want to mention that during APRICOT this week, we've got APNIC 43. That's quite a while since APNIC 20 in Hanoi. It's our 43rd gathering, of course, of the APNIC community. And so we've got a few APNIC sessions. We've got the APNIC Policy SIG on Wednesday, where you can take part in determining how IP address management policies are used and developed in this region. We also have the APNIC Annual General Meeting on Thursday, and that's actually an open meeting, and everyone's welcome to hear about what's been happening at APNIC over the last year. We've got, very importantly actually, we've got an election of the APNIC Executive Council, and APNIC members can vote on site during the meeting on Thursday, so please do take that opportunity as well. And speaking of the APNIC Executive Council, we've also got a special session where you can meet the CEC during a drinks event on Wednesday night, so please do take that opportunity to meet EC members who are here, maybe also a few candidates in the election that night. So, special welcome to APNIC members, but amongst everyone here, thanks very much for being here, and please do enjoy APNIC 2000. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I'd now like to invite His Excellency Dr. Phan Tam, the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Information and Communications, to say a few welcoming words.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. A great honor for me to be at the opening ceremony of the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Conference on Operational Technology, the APRICOT 2017 in Ho Chi Minh City today. First of all, on behalf of the Ministry of Information and Communication of Vietnam, I would like to warmly welcome distinguished delegates who come from more than 60 countries and territories, the representative of international organizations and press media to this important event. Ladies and gentlemen, the rapid development of internet tremendously changed all aspects of the society. The internet has been pulling the whole world closer by enhancing the mutual understanding and deepening the relationship between peoples and nations. The internet is also a very important infrastructure for digital economy development integration, which creates more and more new business opportunities, promote trade and investment, and improve productivity and efficiency of administration, and thereby enhances the national competitiveness. Today, our meeting takes place when the fourth industrial revolution on the high agenda of all countries. I believe that with the participation of more than 700 attendees, our APRICOT 2017 is a very useful place for all experts, engineers, and technical staff to discuss deeply about policies, standards, tools, and solutions toward the fourth industrial revolution. And I believe that we do need a new breakthrough in the development of robust, stable, and secure internet so as to meet the requirements of the fourth industrial revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, during the history of 20 years of development, the internet in Vietnam has made its sustainable way into the society. The government pays a lot of attention to create favorable environment for ICT to flourish. And as a result, the number of internet users has been increased steadily and today reach more than 60% of the population in 2006. And the development of e-commerce, e-government, e-health, etc. have been achieving significant progress as well. But to meet the growing demand of the digital economy, Vietnam is moving to IPv6. And this movement started in 2008 when Vietnam has issued the National IPv6 Action Plan up to 2020. And today, more than 6% of the internet users have IPv6 connection. I hope that our meeting, APRICOT 2017, is a great chance for all of us and for the internet community to share successful stories and experiences in deploying IPv6 and to comprehensively review standards, policies, and cooperation opportunities in addressing challenges against internet sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Information and Communication of Vietnam and on behalf of the Vietnam internet community, I would like to sincerely thank you for continuous fruitful cooperation and support among APRICOT member countries and the global internet community. Vietnam is always an active and responsible member of the global internet community. And I strongly believe that acting together, we will succeed in realizing the vision of a secure, diversified, and stable internet environment. Finally, I would like to encourage you all to use your time wisely, not only to have a fruitful discussion here in the meeting room, but also to enjoy the beautiful, peaceful, and friendly Vietnam. Once again, I would like to wish you all good health, happiness, and success. Thank you for your kind cooperation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tam. We would like to give you a small token of our appreciation. Shall we go back on the stage? Stay here, okay. All right, thank you very much. Now, I would tasking MC. Right, okay. I would like to invite Tran Minh Tan, who's the Director General of APNIC, to say a few words of welcome.
His Excellency Dr. Phan Tam, Vice Minister of Ministry of Information and Communication of Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Vietnam Internet Network Information Center, APNIC, the local host of the APRICOT 2017, I would like to extend my warmest greeting to all participants here. APNIC used to have an opportunity to host a big event of Internet, the Asia Pacific region, which was APNIC 20 thing in Hanoi 12 years ago. It is the second time such an important event of Asia Pacific regions Internet Committee come to Vietnam, especially Ho Chi Minh City. toxicity in our country, not prosperity and diversion. It is an important opportunity for the internet community in Vietnam to integrate with the world, bringing about the many benefits for all stakeholders. I want to send my great thanks to APIA and APNIC for choosing the place for APRICOT here. It may have taken you some time to consider the several options which in which you highlight as species, our country and this city, and brought us the chance to meet many experts, professionals, and the leader of internet company. We expect that the collaboration with APNIC, the Vietnam Internet Association (VIA), and the Vietnam Corporation, you all will feel the kindness and hospitality of Vietnamese people. In the upcoming years, after APRICOT 2017, definitely we will have an APNIC meeting again, our first ICANN meeting ever. And we are looking forward to seeing you in Vietnam. But firstly, please enjoy the environment here with lot of discussion, tutorial, your app with own people. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Vu The Binh to say a few words on behalf of the Vietnam Internet Association.
Okay, welcome again to Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Hope you have a good impression during the last workshop and today. And I would like to say thanks to APIA and APNIC to consider Vietnam as a destination for APRICOT. We talked about that 3 or 4 years ago, and this is the first time APRICOT to be in Vietnam, and it's really a good news for local internet community. And it's more than just an event, because this year, so Vietnam will celebrate 20 years of the internet officially open on 1997. So during the last 20 years, internet contributed a lot to the development of Vietnam, and which all of you can see the changes, the development for Vietnam. And for the international participant, we would like you to enjoy the time in Saigon, to enjoy very beautiful city, and to make friends, and to probably to seek for any potential cooperation in the future. And for the Vietnam participants, we do hope that this is a very good chance, not only to get the knowledge or conference during the conference and workshop for APRICOT, but also the time for connecting to hundreds of potential partners globally. And we do hope that the organizer will consider to come back to Vietnam sometimes soon, because if we wait as circling, so maybe next 20 years to get back to Vietnam, so many of us will be retired already. So thank you, and have a nice day, and all the best.
Thank you, Binh. I would now like to invite our keynote speaker, who's Tim O'Reilly, to come on the stage. We need to move the podium a little bit out of the way and do that. So while that's happening, So Tim O'Reilly is the founder and CEO of O'Reilly Media and a partner at the early stage venture funds of Maker Media, which was spun out from O'Reilly Media in 2012. Also in Code America, PHA, Civis Analytics, and PopFox. So please, would you all welcome Tim? Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. You have a beautiful country. I've been here for a couple of weeks, and it's quite wonderful. I wanted to start by saying something about how I got here. I spoke out loud to a device in my kitchen, and I said, "Is my flight on time?" And when I discovered that it was, I asked it to call me a car. Sure enough, a Lyft showed up a few minutes later to take me to the airport. Now, if you imagine that only a few years ago, you could easily imagine somebody watching that interaction. And what would they say? They'd say, WTF, I mean, what the, which of course stands for what's the future? I mean, you know, what is going on here? But there are a lot of people who are reading the news about the future, and they are saying WTF in a very different tone of voice. They're not expressing amazement, they're expressing dismay or horror. They're hearing that AI is going to take away jobs. There's a recent study from Oxford University saying that 47% of jobs are at risk of being automated in the next 20 years. They've heard about self-driving trucks and cars putting millions more people out of work. They've actually heard talk coming from Silicon Valley of why we need universal basic income because there'll be no work left for humans to do. Do you really think there's nothing left for humans? I don't. Our global economy has gone wrong because it has developed the mistaken idea that the purpose of technology is to maximize productivity, even if that means treating people as a cost to be eliminated. This is a problem. It's a problem because of all the lost potential, but it's also a problem because, as Professor Andy McAfee, who's the co-author with Eric Brynjolfsson of a book called The Second Machine Age, said to me in a conversation once, the people will rise up before the robots do. You know, we worry too much about the fear of AI, and instead we need to look and say, what is happening to our society? And so in America, as you know, a president on a basis of a wave of populism, people who are afraid of the future. Now, we as a community have been building the future, and we're building towards a positive future, but we see far too many people who are afraid of that future. Now, we have seen this happen before. In 1811 and 1812 in England, there was a rebellion under the name of a mythical character named Ned Ludd. Weavers whose livelihoods were threatened by the new steam-powered looms smashed the looms, and there was a rebellion for a couple of years. It gave rise to the term Luddite, people who are afraid of technology. Now, those people were afraid of the future, and they were right to be afraid because their livelihoods were threatened. But they didn't imagine what was possible with technology. They couldn't imagine the cornucopia, the amazing things that technology would bring to our society. You know, the wealth around the world that has been developed over the last 2 centuries. They couldn't imagine that their grandchildren would have more clothing than the kings of their day. They couldn't imagine that ordinary people could eat so well. They couldn't imagine how long people would live. They couldn't imagine that we would build cities in the desert with buildings a half-mile high. They couldn't imagine that we'd go into space, that we'd split the atom, that we would fly through the air, that we would dig tunnels, that we would put cables across the ocean to connect all of us in this global internet. All of these things were unimaginable to them at the time. All they could see was what was being lost. So my question to everyone in the world today is, what is our failure of imagination? What is it that we are not thinking about that is possible with the technologies of today? Why are we so often using those technologies instead only to eliminate jobs? So I want to talk a little bit about that today. I don't believe that it is technology that wants to eliminate jobs. Nick Hanauer, who was the first non-family investor in Amazon.com, became very wealthy as a result. He was Jeff Bezos' roommate in college. Said technology is the solution to human problems. We won't run out of work until we run out of problems. And I like to say, are we done yet? I don't think so. And I think all of you in this room don't think so. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough. There's air conditioning. I'm going to suck in this lozenge for a moment. So, you know, I think of the global grand challenges that technology can and should be helping us with: climate change, rebuilding and rethinking the infrastructure of our society. Oh my God, sorry about that. Getting rid of the common cold. Dealing with, here in Vietnam, I know you have a young population. In the US, we have a much older population. We need more young people. Of course, we're going the wrong way with blocking immigration, but let's leave that aside. You know, we have problems of income inequality and income insecurity. We have displaced people around the world. You know, how could we use technology to create the infrastructure for whole new cities? You know, you've done a huge amount of that here in Asia. But I look at situations in the Middle East, for example, where we have vast numbers of refugees, and I ask, why aren't we looking at that as an opportunity to build the cities of the future? Why are we putting them in squalid refugee camps rather than saying, how do we turn them into settlers of the future? There's so many problems to work on. So what does all this have to do with you? I mean, sorry, can I get some water, perhaps? You know, you're internet operators. But the internet is becoming the infrastructure of so much more. When we collectively began our work, the internet was a way to connect people, to communicate, to you know, to put documents online. But increasingly, it's becoming the connective tissue of all kinds of new services. So let me begin with a story about Linux. Many of you remember, at least those of you who are closer to my age, some of you are much younger, but when Linux first appeared on the scene, a lot of people saw it as an alternative to Microsoft Windows. And we took for granted that the dominant paradigm of the personal computer was what mattered. And we needed to replace Windows with Linux. I actually realized that that was the wrong map of the future. And I spent a lot of time thinking instead about what the internet had to teach us about the future. And I came up with an image, which I represented with this hoax from the 19th century called, or actually it was the 18th century, it was the 1770s, the Mechanical Turk. Now you guys probably know about Amazon's Mechanical Turk, but it was based on this same idea. And this was a supposed chess-playing machine. It toured Europe in the 1770s. People like Benjamin Franklin played against it and lost. Turned out there was a man hidden inside. And thinking about Google and Amazon back in the late 90s, I realized that these applications had something very similar to the Mechanical Turk. They had people hidden inside of them. And that was a really interesting design pattern. I actually first got this idea. How many of you ever read our book, Mastering Regular Expressions? I don't know if you remember that book. Yeah, Jeff Friedel. And I asked Jeff, he's a Perl programmer working at Yahoo, and I said, what do you do every day with Perl at Yahoo? And he said, oh, I write regular expressions to match up ticker symbols with news stories for, finance.yahoo.com. And I realized, that's why Perl was so important in those days inside these big internet sites, because the programmer was still inside the program. It was sort of a daily process. And this was a very, very different paradigm. And that paradigm, since those years, 20 years ago, has continued to become such a powerful framing idea for how the world works today, because we're increasingly building a hybrid of human and machine. And all of you, in some sense, are inside the internet. You go away, it stops working, right? It's not like a piece of software in the PC era where if you had a copy of Microsoft Windows running on your personal computer, it would keep running without the original programmers. Almost all of the software we depend on today is a service that depends on the work of people like you and various other layers of workers who are keeping the business processes alive that make that software work. And all of these services are hybrids then of human and machine. Sorry, I'm about to cough again. Can you mute this for just a moment? All right. And so I think it's very, really important to understand how much depends on what you do. You are providing the infrastructure of the next generation of applications. Now, this was foreseen from the earliest days of the internet. J.C.R. Licklider, who was the DARPA program manager who funded a lot of the original work on the internet, wrote a paper in 1960 called Man-Machine Symbiosis. We'll forgive him for saying man-machine rather than human-machine, but he's a creature of his day, but very visionary in other ways. He said the hope is that in not too many years, human brains and computing machines will be coupled together very tightly so that the resulting partnership will think as no human brain has ever thought and process data in a way not approached by the information handling machines we know today. If you think about that, what is Google but this kind of partnership of human and machine, where we are creating documents, they're being read by algorithm, our minds are being magnified by this machine. There are people inside writing the algorithms that help make sense of billions of independent actions, 6 billion searches a day turned into new kinds of knowledge for all of us. So I like to think we're building a global brain. It's all of us connected. The work you do is bringing new people into this global system. And you're also responsible for its health, for its security. So in some sense, you might say that you are doctors of this new human superorganism. You are part of what keeps it healthy and alive. But I want to talk a little bit about the implications of the internet becoming more and more pervasive in our society for the future of work. This is not good. Sorry. I lost my image on the screen down there. I don't know if you guys can bring me that back. Hal Varian, the Google chief scientist, said, "My grandfather wouldn't recognize what I do as work." Now, of course, Hal is an economist. He's Google's chief economist, and that is a job that did not exist. Jobs like data scientists did not exist. Jobs like the ones that you do did not exist 25 years ago. But I think it's more than that. Of course, Hal is wrong, of course, because if you look at those workers in the 19th century sweatshop, they look a lot like those workers at Pivotal. People still lined up in rows. Oh, thank you. And, sorry, I went backwards there. But realistically, there's something going on here that I think is really worthwhile, because the people in that sweatshop were the workers. But the people at a company like Pivotal, at a company like Google, at a company like Snap, are actually managers. When you look at McDonald's, 440,000 employees for 68 million monthly users. Snap, 300 employees for 100 million monthly users. You have to ask, how is that possible? It's possible because the actual workers at a modern internet company are programmers. All of those programmers that I showed in that picture are not actually the workers, they are the managers. And so effectively, what we think of as programming has become a management discipline. So when we talk about the build, measure, learn cycle by which we build modern internet applications, we're talking about a process of instruction by which we tell the workers what to do. We give them feedback about their performance. We improve what they do every day. And that's sort of the work of management in the 21st century. But there's a bit of a problem, because we're increasingly building new kinds of hybrid systems in which the programs can even be managers. Right? So when you think about a system like Uber or Lyft, here there are programmers who are the top managers, and then there are their programs, their algorithms, who are the middle managers, and then there are humans who are actually workers reporting to the algorithms. When you have that Uber app, it tells you where to go, who to pick up, passengers rate you, your effectively your work scores are reported, and you can be dismissed on the basis of the data that's tracked about you. So there's some really powerful implications. And it turns out that this is also a big change in how we have to think about internet applications. When the applications were purely digital, all that a company had to focus on was, did it satisfy its users? But when you actually have humans as part of the system as workers, you have to actually think about satisfying both your customers and your workers. And so it's been a real problem that, for example, Uber has increasingly treated their workers as a disposable commodity rather than figuring out how to empower them. So I think that there's some real challenges ahead for some of the on-demand applications, even though they are sort of cutting edge in the way of using applications and algorithms to deploy human labor. They have to get a lot better at managing it. I think the thing we also have to realize is that algorithms are increasingly the bosses at many other kinds of workplaces. So I noticed there's a Starbucks around the corner, so you're familiar with them here in Vietnam. At Starbucks, there is software that tells people when to show up to work, what their shifts are. And for example, until very recently, there was a practice called the Klopen, which is basically a shift in which somebody is told to close the store late at night and to be back there early in the morning to open it again. And if you don't live close by, or even if you do, you maybe have only 4 hours to go to sleep. But you have no choice. You basically do what the software tells you to do or you get fired. And so, there are some real problems in learning. Sorry about this. I really apologize for your ears. In understanding how to improve these algorithms. But I'm heartened by the memory of Alta Vista. How many of you were around back in the days when Alta Vista looked like that, and how terrible it was? The search was bad, but you had all these flashing ads. You had people who were kind of in your face. And then along came Google. And Google figured out how to make the algorithms better, how to serve users more effectively. And not just how to serve up better search results, but how to serve up better ads. And I have great faith in that, because what Google taught us over the last 20 years is that algorithms are perfectible and improvable. And that one of the great works of the 21st century is going to be to make the algorithms that we use to manage more and more of our society better. We have to actually think about that as a key part of our work. Because there are choices involved. This is a U.S. auto factory in the 20th century. We made choices for those workplaces to become better. And as we have algorithms that are increasingly managing our businesses and managing our society, we have to make the right choices to design those algorithms in a way that leads to a better workplace for human beings. David Rolfe, who's a labor activist in the United States, likes to look back on those good jobs of the 20th century, and he says, look, God did not make being an auto worker a good job. This was a result of a lot of struggle between people about who would get the benefit of technology, who would get the economic benefit. And I think we're entering as a society into a similar period of struggle where we have to decide who's going to get the benefits of everything we build, because we are building a very, very different future. So we have choices to make as a society. But moving on, there's some really important lessons that we all need to take from what is happening in technology about the design of organizations. There's a great deal that we can learn from Amazon. All of you, again, I don't know how widely used Amazon here is in Vietnam, but dominant site in the US, originally as an e-commerce site. But at some point, Amazon understood and figured out how to turn itself into a platform. They rebuilt the business itself around a set of services, which they then offered out to the world. Amazon Web Services has gone on to become a key part of the internet infrastructure, on which virtually every startup has been built. But Amazon also understood that this required them to rethink the way the organization itself worked. And they started to develop a set of practices, management practices, internally. And I think this has also been true at other companies. So there's a whole business practice that needs to be developed for the 21st century. Josh Burson, who's a human resource consultant who works at Deloitte, said doing digital, just having a website, for example, it's not the same as being digital. Amazon is fundamentally digital as a company. But I like to look at some of these O'Reilly books as 21st century business books. Site reliability engineering isn't just a technical topic anymore. It really is a topic that leads deep into the question of how do we organize ourselves to make technology work inside a business. And so some of you may remember, I don't know whether this news, again, something that you followed here in Vietnam, but back in 2013, the United States had a technology crisis when the Obama administration's signature policy initiative, which was the healthcare Act, Obamacare so-called, to offer health care to many, many more Americans, nearly failed because the government was unable to build a working website. It was terrible, and they brought in a bunch of people, many of them were site reliability engineers from Google, who had to fix it. And they basically brought the technology practices of Silicon Valley to bear on a problem that any of us in this room would know how to solve, but that were very foreign and very difficult because of the way government builds technology. But it's so important to realize, this is a great quote from a guy named Tom Steinberg from the UK. He wrote, "Good governance and good policy are now inextricably linked to the digital." So in everything from business to government, the internet is starting to change the way that society operates, and we have to get good at it. So my wife, who's sitting over there in the front row, started an organization called Code for America, and then went to the White House, started something called the United States Digital Service. And working with President Obama's team, they tried to bring the best practices of technology into government. And they had some great successes, and one of them was really the realization by key members of the Obama administration that these lessons of technology were not just technology lessons. Cecilia Munoz, who is the director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, very close to President Obama, said after one particular experience, they basically had been developing a program and with the United States Digital Service. The policymakers had requested certain features, and they were very upset because when they got their prototype, those features weren't included. And the team said, well, actually, they were included, but we tested them and nobody used them, so we took them out. And the policy people were like, no, we want them back in. And Cecilia, to her credit, said, no, they're right. If nobody was using them, they shouldn't be there, right? And she said, this is not just how we should be developing software, it's how we should be developing policy. Tom Loosemore, who is the Deputy Director of the United Kingdom's UK Government Digital Service, said that most laws and policies represent hundreds of pages of untested assumptions. And we're starting to change that. So government typically works with massive projects based on somebody's idea about what ought to be done. The implementation is outsourced. Governments have the expertise in policy, but not in implementation. But as we all know in technology, implementation is what makes the difference. And we know that measurement really matters. And whereas in government, measurement, if it happens at all, takes years or decades. And this is increasingly out of step with the way the world works today. There's a wonderful document that was published by the UK Government Digital Service, the UK Government Design Principles. I highly recommend anybody who wants to think about the design of 21st century applications to look at this as a key design document. It really tells a lot about how we should be building software and services today. But in all of this, we have to actually start building services that are user-centered, designed from the outside in. What are we really trying to accomplish? How do they work? Jen likes to say, we have to go from apps to ops, which is bringing it back into your world, right? A lot of the work that we've ended up doing at Code for America is that as we rebuild government services from the outside with users at the center of our focus, we realize that the operations need to be revised. The workflows need to be developed and changed. And so that's what Jen's meant by moving from apps to ops. So you guys know, you live in a very unforgiving world. You know, if you build something and it doesn't work, you know right away that it doesn't work. But typically in government, you can build something that does not work, and it takes you years to figure it out, if ever. So as the world becomes increasingly real time, this problem becomes even more urgent. Jeff Jonas, who was an IBM fellow, recently left to do a new startup, but had this great line in an IBM commercial a few years ago. He said, "Would you cross the street with information that was 5 seconds old?" No, and we are moving into a world where everything has to be real time, or it does not matter. So, in that regard, we have to actually look at the next generation of algorithms as if they are power tools for our minds. Because the processes that we need to use to manage modern internet scale applications are beyond simple human intervention. And so you may know in the US elections recently, we have an ongoing controversy about fake news, where people were posting false stories on Facebook. They became very influential. They're shared millions of times before they're debunked. There's one instance actually happened on Twitter where somebody had a false report, was reshared millions of times. The guy later retracted it. The retraction was shared 23 times. And so you clearly go, it's not enough to catch this stuff a day later or 2 days later. You have to catch it almost immediately. And that's where we need to actually bring the algorithms to work. Just like we don't try to build a modern building with picks and shovels, we use giant cranes and power tools. And I think in a similar way, we have to realize that algorithms are the power tools that allow us to tackle problems where information is moving at enormous speed and scale. So users post 7 billion pieces of content a day to Facebook. There are roughly 6 or 7 billion searches a day on Google. You have to have algorithms that can move at that speed. And so again, this whole question of how humans and machines work together more productively is one of the great questions of the 21st century. But there's also a question, as we build these algorithms, can we trust them? John Madison, who's the Chief Medical Information Officer for a US healthcare firm, Kaiser, said the great question of the 21st century is going to be, whose black box can we trust? Because we're increasingly dependent on algorithms that are managed by a small number of people. And we have to be able to trust those algorithms. You guys all know this in the world of cybersecurity. We have to actually get better and better at actually figuring out what are the rules by which we share, perhaps in an open source way, how algorithms work. But we also need, even when we know that there is a problem, we often can't fix it. You may know that there was a DARPA grand challenge recently for cybersecurity, because they said, there are thousands and thousands of security vulnerabilities that are known, but that humans don't get around to patching. So they were looking for AI projects, machine learning projects to detect and patch security vulnerabilities, right? And I think it's also important to realize that so many of the cyber attacks that come in are at the speed of machines, and you need machines to respond. There's a concept out of air warfare called the OODA loop. It was described, fighter pilot John Boyd described how the way that you defeat an enemy is, he described it as getting inside the loop by which the two pilots are trying to observe, orient, decide, and act. And the pilot who can move more quickly gets inside the loop of the other and wins the battle. And I think when we're battling humans against cyber intruders, if one is operating at the speed of a computer and the other is acting at a speed of a human, the computer always wins. So we actually, again, have to bring computers and humans together in new ways in order to solve that problem. We also need new approaches to regulatory systems. There's a fascinating story that I came across from the early days of jet aviation. It was after World War II, and a British airline company called de Havilland had built the first commercial jetliner. There it is, the de Havilland Comet. And they were poised to dominate the jet age. And then suddenly, unexpectedly, a de Havilland Comet just fell out of the sky. First time, they blamed bad weather and pilot error. And then a few months later, it happened again in clear skies. And they did an extensive investigation. They decided that metal fatigue was the problem. They published a report on it. They said, we've completely reinforced all the possible sources of failure. It's safe. They took up flying again. And once again, a few months later, de Havilland Comet fell out of the sky. And a young engineer from an American company, Boeing, which was just beginning to get into commercial aircraft, figured out that the right answer was not to prevent any source of metal fatigue. It was actually to reinforce the plane in such a way that when you had cracks, none of them could propagate too far. Now, all of us in computer security know that that is, in fact, the proper answer. You cannot prevent problems. You have to actually just keep them from propagating too far. You have to catch them early. And so you have to be tolerant of failure, and we have to build systems that allow us to fail and degrade gracefully. So again, here's this really interesting lesson from our world that needs to be applied across virtually every aspect of the way society to get today. So in this age of algorithms that we're all part of, you have to start thinking, well, what are we trying to accomplish? So often in government and so on, we set rules. We don't think about the outcomes. But you guys know, you have to actually build towards outcomes. You have to operate at the speed and scale of the system you're trying to regulate and manage. You have to actually have real-time data feedback loops. You have to be robust in the face of failure. You have to address incentives that can lead to misbehavior. So, for example, in the case of the Facebook fake news problem, there were financial incentives that were actually driving people to create fake news. They could make money at it. And so Facebook has had to go back and say, okay, well, maybe there's something wrong with our incentive system. But most importantly, you know that this is an ongoing problem. You have to actually revise what you do in order to stay true to your objectives. So a lot of lessons here from our world for the wider world. The next thing I want to really mention that's kind of an implication of our world and where it's taking us, what we do on the internet and how it's shaping society, is that the boundaries between physical and digital are blurring. As I mentioned before, we're used to thinking of the internet as something for content, for communications, but it's increasingly becoming the gateway and the platform for real-world services. Matt Kohler, who was one of the co-founders of Facebook, went on to become a venture capitalist, one of the early investors in Uber, had this great line. He said, the smartphone is becoming a remote control for the real world. And he was referring to a service like Uber, where, of course, you can click on your smartphone and magically the car, or here in Vietnam, how cool is it, a motorcycle shows up to take you to your destination. This is actually accelerating, I think, with the introduction of speech interfaces. I mentioned in my opening how I called the car for the airport using a simple speech-enabled device at home. But you guys remember, some of you, those of you who are my age at least, remember the introduction of the iPhone and how transformative it was, that ability to touch the screen, to pinch and zoom, and you picked up an old school device that didn't have multi-touch, and it felt dead, felt inert. What was something wrong with it? Well, I feel the same way now when I can't talk to a device. I've gotten so used to being able to talk to my devices, and I think this is going to spread. And we're going to start finding the world increasingly perfused with technology, infused with technology, so that we will be talking to our homes, to our cars, to our every device, and we'll expect them to listen, we'll expect them to talk back, we'll expect them to act. We are just at the beginning of a revolution that is as big or bigger than the smartphone revolution. Of course, it's going to create way more demand for the kinds of internet services and connectivity that you guys have been building for the last 25 years. But it's also going to change the depth of demand for those services. And of course, require new thinking about user interface design, new thinking about security, new thinking about services as a whole. And in that regard, I want to talk a little bit about the Internet of Things. Because a lot of people think the Internet of Things is about devices and connected devices. And I've liked to talk a lot about Uber as an Internet of Things application. You know, Nest, again, you probably don't have that here in Vietnam, but it's a connected thermostat. Google bought it for $3-some billion. And it was cool, but it's just a connected device. Whereas Uber is an entire system of interaction in the real world, but nobody thought of it as Internet of Things because all the sensors that it relied on were not in a custom device, they were just in our smartphones, right? So that smartphone is this incredible sensor package. And what was so interesting to me about Uber and Lyft and other on-demand apps is they actually rethought the way the world could work. This great quote from Aaron Levy, who was the founder of a startup called Box.net. He said, "Uber is a lesson in building for how the world should work instead of optimizing for how the world does work." I like to point out that, again, at least in the US, we actually had connected taxi cabs for years before we had Uber. But all they did with that connectivity was put a credit card reader in the back of the car. They put a little screen there so they could show ads. You know, and then along comes Uber and they go, oh, actually, we have a way better thing we can do with that. We can actually call a car to you. Because guess what? Your phone knows exactly where you are. The driver's phone knows exactly where he or she is. We can match you up in real time. That's magical. It's rethinking the way the world works based on what is possible today. And I think we're just at the beginning of that process. So coming back to the theme that I mentioned earlier, it's so important that we have to think about not using technology to replace people, but to augment them to do something that was previously impossible. The taxi cab driver before had to drive around, had to see you on the street. Now, magically, they can come find you. They can come to you. You can summon them anywhere. It's quite remarkable. So, but what about self-driving cars? Obviously, another sensor-driven device. Really interesting in the context of Uber. If I say, one of the things that Uber is all about is empowering people to do something that was previously impossible, then along comes Uber and says, well, we want to get rid of all the people. That's an Uber self-driving car in Arizona. But I'm not sure that even that is a problem. And I'll tell you why. Right, there's two reasons. The first one is that any kind of technology transformation takes a long time. There's a recent estimate from Goldman Sachs. It'll take something like till 2060, another 40 years for self-driving cars to become the norm. Partly because it takes time for people to sell their old cars, to replace, to upgrade, and so on. And so we have time to think about it. But more than that, I want you to think a little bit about, I'm going too fast here, this. I am not a pilot, just so you know. But here I am at the controls of a cross-country jet last year, flying from San Francisco to Montreal. The pilot thought nothing of putting me in the pilot seat, because guess what? He wasn't flying the plane either, right? There was a robot flying the plane. It was a self-flying plane. And I used to imagine, I knew that there were autopilots, and what I imagined was that the autopilot was used, as it was here, when you're flying a long stretch across the country, you're kind of going in a straight line. And he said, oh, no, you don't understand. That's the only time we get to fly. He said, if you're trying to have a human pilot now go into a busy airport like San Francisco, there's no way you can make the timing work. It's too easy for a human pilot to miss the approach and screw up things for everybody else. So we never land except on autopilot. The only time I get to fly is on a long straight stretch like this. Well, that was totally different than I expected. So we've had effectively self-driving airplanes. We've entrusted ourselves to them. And here's the interesting thing. Air travel got safer. Air travel got cheaper. That expanded the ability of all of us to fly around, but it also created new kinds of services where increasingly packages shipped by air, the rise of services like Federal Express, all the way up to, again, what we experience with Amazon in the US today, where you can order a product and have it show up same day. All part of this logistics revolution, this increasingly led to by automation. So I think as we have self-driving cars, there will be new kinds of economic activity that are made possible because those cars make it easier for anything to be delivered. And we already see signs of this. In the US, Uber and Lyft have partnered with transportation services in the cities to help take elderly patients to work, to do paratransit, so on. Do you need me to speed up? Am I running behind? Okay, great. Okay, I'll move this along. They've been delivering nurses for flu shots, but probably the most important thing that I have seen is a startup called Zipline, which is an on-demand service operating in Rwanda. And they have figured out how to use drones and on-demand technology to deliver blood and medicines anywhere in the country within 20 minutes. This is in a country with poorly developed road infrastructure, without hospitals, where postpartum hemorrhage is one of the leading causes of death among women. And this is amazing. You're taking technology and they are transforming a service that was previously impossible. And I just want to bring that round to really think about what you have all been working towards all these years. You are building the internet of amazing possibilities. We are not just recreating the old economy. We are making a new economy where things like Zipline become possible. And I think that is our challenge as an industry, to make sure that we focus on work that makes the world a better place. Now, all of you know that. I think you know that way better here in Asia Pacific, where you are still working to build the internet as a service for humanity, whereas in Silicon Valley, so often we are building relatively trivial services. But I want to just leave you with that message. The internet is a force for good. Technology is a force for good. Let's hold to that vision and let's build a better future together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim, for sharing your vision of the future before you run away. Would like to give you a small token of appreciation. Thank you very much for coming all the way.
Thank you. That looks like a large token of appreciation.
You will need two hands.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would now like to invite our second keynote speaker, Nguyen Hong Tang, who is the Deputy Director General of APNIC, to deliver his keynote. So Nguyen Hong Tang joined VNIC in 2000 as one of the pioneers of the organization. He was one of the first engineers and played a key role in building many of the critical internet systems such as National DNS System for VN-CCTLD, Vietnam National Internet Exchange Point, Vietnam National IPv6 Network, and was appointed as the Deputy Director General of VNIC in August 2011. Tang is a board member of the Vietnam National IPv6 Task Force and has been actively involved in, actively devoting himself on promotion and deployment of IPv6 in Vietnam.
Please on slide. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My slide already on screen already. The title of my slide is the 20-year internet in Vietnam and thinking about the letter I in the internet. 20 years is very long, so I think I should focus on the letter I in the internet. I think it's more interesting for you. The outline of my presentation, very simple. The first is a little bit about I. What does it mean? And I is the past, the present, vision, and in the future. First of all, I want to talking about the letter I in the name of internet. There are two cases: the internet with the lowercase I and the uppercase I. It's a different meaning. Internet, we are using it today is the letter I. It's the letter I in uppercase, and the difference between the internet and the internet, and you see in the screen about there are more than 45% of internet people using have a misuse and writing the word internet, and especially in UK, until 75 people misuse when writing. People use the internet, people don't know about the name of internet. A big mistake. So I think everyone here don't have this kind of mistake. So I want to talking about the letter I. 20 years ago, how Vietnamese people thinking about the letter I in the internet. The open internet in Vietnam 20 years ago was a very difficult decision. A lot of the new concept, the new issue, problem should be considered when people talking about the open internet into Vietnam. A lot of questions raising. What is the internet? What's the benefit of internet? And how to protect the country from the internet when something happens? And what is a firewall? Is it a brick wall with a fire? It's a very funny question. And we should open internet or not? And when we open internet? So we should say thank to the pioneer who bring internet into Vietnam 20 years ago. Thank to international friends who helped us to set up the first pilot connection from Vietnam, from Institute of IT of Vietnam to Australian University, National University. The first pilot connection is a die-up connection. It's a very expensive connection. The die-up connection from Vietnam to Australia. So we would say a special thanks to late Prime Minister Võ Văn Kiệt, who have innovative thinking. Officer using the internet to communicate with with foreigner. So he is the first user using the internet. He understood the benefit of internet and understood of advantage of internet when Vietnam using internet. And then he take very important role to open internet in Vietnam 20 years ago. So thanks for the effort of professional, of engineer, and the policy maker, the leader, and international brand. Finally, we decide to choose the internet with letter I capitalized. The internet we are using today. We are open the internet. We open the door to the internet on the 19th November 20 years ago. From that time, Vietnam become a member on a part of global internet with a very limited infrastructure. At that time, we have only 4 ISP have a license to provide the internet access service, and only 1 ISP have a right to provide the internet gateway. Only 1. Every other ISP must go to the VNPT to go to the internet. And we have a temporary internet regulation. It's a very low, heavy regulation at that time. So I think it's enough for talking about the history. So I want to go to talking about the I in prison. From now, what does it mean? I want to talk a lot about the letter I in prison. The I from now mean the internet, important internet indicator. So the first internet indicator I want to talk is the number of internet user in Vietnam. 30 years ago, only 1 user. So now we have more than 50 billion internet user, about 60% of population. And it sharply increased recently. We are ranking number 13 in the world, and in number 5 in Asia, and number 2 in ASEAN country about the internet number of internet user. Vietnam is number 3 in top of 20 countries with the highest internet development rate. So now internet very popular in Vietnam, from farmer, the older, the children, and the young people using internet everywhere. You can see here, internet everywhere. And the people spend about 2 and 4 hours per day to access the internet. And most the mobile and the PC. The mobile is very popular. Another indicator is the internet infrastructure indicator. As I said before, when we opened the internet 20 years ago, we have only 4 ISP, and the policy very slow, and only 1 ISP have a right to open international connection. So the government changed policy a lot to make it more open, and allow the competitive in an ISP and bring the best service to end user. So now we have more than 30 ISP actively provide service for end user, and government want to set up the national internet exchange to optimize the local traffic, to provide the better traffic service for user in domestic. And you can see in the graph on the left, the total bandwidth of international and domestic in Korea very fast, and sharply in Korea in recent year. Total bandwidth of international now is 4 terabyte, and domestic about 3 terabyte. Comparison with in the past, Another internet indicator I want to talk here is the identification of the internet, the domain name .vn. When we start to provide the .vn domain name for end user in Vietnam in 2000, we start with a small team, APNIC, small team about 10 people, and at that time we provide the domain name registration service directly to subscriber in Vietnam. So after a few years, we found that it's not efficient, and we changed the model. We decided to change the model. We need the intermediate layer in the middle between us and the customer. We call register. So we change the model of .vn domain name management to registry, register, and registration. So we need the letter I again, intermediate layer. And now we have more than about 400,000 .vn domain name and 1 million .vn domain name in Vietnamese language, and ranking is number one in Asia, and number one in ASEAN, and number 8 in Asia. Another internet identification indicator is the IPv6, and we start transitioning to IPv6 very soon, about more than 10 years ago, and we have a national action plan on V6, moving from V4 to V6, and after the one IPv6 launch, 1 year after, we officially launched the national IPv6 network in Vietnam, and now we have more than 800,000 internet broadband subscriber at home with V6, and the rate of IPv6 adoption in Vietnam is about 6%, and increased very fast, sharply in last year. So I could say that the internet development in Vietnam is very successful, and the most important factor is the innovative ideology of management, starting from the slow, heavy regulation, and we change the policy from the management to promote the development. And now ICT is an infrastructure of infrastructures. So for the rest, I want to talk a little bit about the letter I in the future. From now, the letter I have a different meaning. We are going to the future with a lot of opportunity. I think internet will become more popular with the V6 and V4 will be disappear very soon. And people talking a lot about the IoT, the benefit of IoT, and IoT will change our life, make our life better. And I think IoT is an implication of global internet, and there are about 15 billion devices will connect the internet. It's a very large market, and people talking a lot about the industry 4.0 and industry of IoT, the very big market. But the opportunity always going with challenge. So what is the challenge? IoT. What's the challenge with IoT? I think now is the most biggest issue with IoT facing is lacking of consistent standard. There are too many IoT standards right now. Zigbee, Z-Wave, LoRa, 6LoWPAN, anything, and we don't some layer of IoT technology stack like don't have a protocol right now, and some layer have a lot of competitive protocol with no winner. And seeing IoT need IP or not, and need IPv6 or not, still on the discussion. So without the common communication method, the IoT thing, IoT device could not communicate to each other. The interoperability is impossible. And the second challenge is insecure and integrity of data and incident. We don't of Internet of Things. The thing maybe become the bot and attack us. And the basics, the most important is invisible of Internet. We are talking a lot about the 50 billion device we connect to Internet, but now only 1% of things already connected to Internet, and 99% things still invisible with Internet, and around 60% of world population don't have Internet access right now, and in Vietnam about 30 million. It's a very big challenge. So what is the solution? We need innovative ideology more. I need more invent. We need more investment, more money, and more interconnect between the network, connect to the thing, and interoperability, and the thing and the internet should be integrated, and the thing, the people would be more intelligent. There are a lot of solutions. So I think it's not feasible to lead on a solution here, as many solutions are unique to a specific situation. So this is the solution, yes, but I think it's not. Why is it not? Because I think it's not a root solution. The internet is for everyone, but it would not unless we make it so. So what is so is it a solution? My solution. It is not a mathematical comparison. It's a relationship between the people and the internet in the people. And the solution lies within us, human being. People think internet at oneself, at themselves, and therefore make the internet preserve and more powerful internet, more secure internet, and this in turn will make internet become better, make our dream going into the reality. So I leave my message again: is internet is for everyone, but it won't be unless we make it so. This is my message of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You would please stay on the stage so we can give you a token of our appreciation from APRICOT. Come this way. Very. Thank you very much. I would like to invite the speakers and our distinguished guests for a group photo, please, before we conclude the session. Wow, where's the All right, so that brings us to the end of the opening plenary. I would like to thank our two keynote speakers very much, and I would like to thank our distinguished guests from MIC, the Deputy Minister, and colleagues from APNIC, VNIC, VIA, and NetNam for contributing to this session. Given we ran over a little bit, I'm proposing that we start at 10 past the hour, so you can have your half-hour coffee break. So we'll start at 10 minutes past 4. We've got the first APOPS session here. We have the cooperation SIG in next door, I believe it is. So please enjoy your break. For the evening social, buses start leaving at 6:30 p.m. from the lobby of the Sheraton Hotel. So we'll remind you about that again after APOPS. Speakers for the next session, please come to meet your session chair, Yoshinobu Matsuzaki, who will be here shortly. Thank you all very much. See you later.